So, good evening, guys. Welcome to this Facebook Live. Thank you for joining me. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Rick Cardwell, and I'm a therapist, counsellor. I specialise in relationships, but I deal with all therapy-related issues. And this is kind of a bit off track tonight because I just wanted to follow a bit of a theme, not a theme at all. I had something that came in this morning, and I want this to be something that makes you aware of the seriousness of depression and really of the consequences of people that have depression. And why I want that is because I hope that you will understand it more, slightly better, in a way that will help you to maybe help others. And really, if you suffer from depression, then I hope you really pay attention to this because, well, you'll see as it unfolds, really. So I received an email this morning, and an email from somebody that I don't know, but has been following me on Facebook, listening to some of the things that I put there. And the email went through a bit of a story of some detail, which I mean, it's not appropriate for me to share the full story and all the details, but I just want to share a couple of lines and in the hope that you get kind of the gist of the feel of the email. And it touched me, and I wanted to kind of share my thoughts on it, really. The line, well, it starts off at the beginning of the year, I lost my son to depression. He's gone. And then she goes on to tell me the detail of that and how her son took his own life after suffering from depression. And she says that I have deep feelings of pain that are always there. Will they ever go away? And I really, and I'm really, really sorry for this mother's loss, that she's lost her son to something really terrible and something really shocking, really. And I wanted to kind of build on that and hopefully in a positive way. It made me think more today about the consequences of depression and people that I talk to. So one of the problems with suicide is that it always leaves people, everybody has questions that they ask themselves. So what could I have done to have stopped this happening? Or I could have been there more for them. I could have talked more. I could have spent more time. I should have known is the common thing that people say when they lose a loved one to taking their own lives. And this poor woman, this lady, she feels like she's failed as a mother. She feels like all the things that were valuable in her life, or the most important thing in her life, that she's failed at. And she feels that she failed to protect her son from the worst thing that could have possibly happened. And last year, I had a similar situation with somebody that I did know, and a lovely, lovely old lady, a couple that I know, and they lost their daughter to suicide. The daughter took the life, and I said to the grandmother, I said, she was blaming herself for the granddaughter's suicide, and it just devastated her life, both her and her husband's life. And I talked to her about this, and I said to her, I said, she took responsibility for the suicide somehow. It was like it was all her fault. And that was genuinely the way that she was made to feel. And I asked her, I know her husband, a lovely, lovely man, very, very well. And I said to her, I said, are you blaming your husband for your granddaughter's suicide. I said, are you sitting down and are you telling him how he is a bad grandfather, how he's a useless grandfather, how he has failed completely as a grandfather? Have you sat him down and have you told him that? And she said, of course not. I'd never do that. And I said, well, don't do it to yourself. Don't do that to yourself. It's not your fault and it's not your husband's fault. Don't take that burden on like it is your responsibility and your fault. And depression's a really terrible thing, and it's really difficult to understand. And depressed people, they can go to really dark places that you can't begin to imagine. And the torment that they find themselves in is undescribable. Even people that are feeling that depression, that torment, find it really difficult to explain. And it's not always possible for somebody to be rescued from suicide, but drowning yourself in the problems in the aftermath of suicide is not the best thing that you can do. I mean, sure, there's always things that you regret because you always feel like there's more you could have done. But to drown yourself in those feelings and those emotions, it really isn't helpful. It's not at all the best thing that you can do. And none of us have the ideal or the perfect relationship with any of our relatives or any of our friends, because that's being human. We don't have perfect relationships, and particularly those close to us. When we fall out, we say the wrong things, it hurts more because they are close to us. But that's not the cause of someone's willingness to take their own life. That's not your responsibility, and that's not something that you should blame yourself for, because it really isn't your fault. So if you are prone to depression, and if you ever feel like you want to take your own life, then you have to think very carefully. And you have to think very carefully about the consequences for other people. And I know people, and you may well know people as well, who have never recovered from the suicide of a family member or of somebody that they've loved. They've never got over that. Decades of torment and decades of pain, because that's what you leave behind. Those lives have been ruined because of that suicide, because of the taking of your own life. It runs much, much deeper than just yourself. And often a depressed person will just not be able to see a way out. They can't see any future. They can't see any hope. There's no light. The path forward isn't there, and they're in a place of desperation, of not having any hope, of not having any future, of not having any goals. And no matter where they turn, the suffering is really unbearable, and that is so difficult to imagine that you could be in that place of darkness. But that's really how depressed people feel. And they'll think and say things like, well, it would be better for everyone if I was just gone because I'm of no use to anyone. And I might not be so much of a burden now, but I will be in the future. And they paint a picture of meaningless darkness for the future that's all they can see in front of them. And it's really hard to imagine what that is like for people. That's a really dreadful state to be in. So suicide absolutely devastates the lives of the people that you leave behind. If people are really depressed, then then they really should think that there are other ways out. Don't think that anybody is better off without you. Don't ever think that. And if you're at the point where you can't think of any other way, then you should tell someone, and you should get some medical intervention, and you get it now. You do that now. You do that because that can happen when you get depressed. And there are treatments for depression. Antidepressants are no blanket cure for everything, and there's a lot of side effects to having antidepressants, but they certainly beat the hell out of suicide. And negative side effects aren't fatal. So think of your options. Think of what you can do to get yourself out of this place that you feel. And there are a lot of reasons that people get depressed, and it's very, very complex because everybody's so individual. But what I would say is don't ever give up hope and do something final. Try all possible options. And I would say that as a person, you have a responsibility to your family and to your friends to talk to them about how you're feeling before you take such a step. And the other thing is that you don't want to deprive the world of the contribution that you can make to make the world a better place. Because we've all got this intrinsic value, a value that makes us useful in the world, that means that we can help other people, that we can reach out to them, that we can support them in a way that makes the world a better place. And we've all got that value. We've all got something that we can do that is good for the world and good for other people. And you don't want to just bring that to an end because the world needs people with value. So if you ever have a plan, and people do plan to commit suicide, then tell someone that cares. Tell them for your sake and for their sake, and tell a doctor. What have you got to lose? Absolutely nothing. So give every thought to the people that you're going to leave behind, because believe me, you're going to wipe out their lives in a way that they'll never recover from. You can't mend a suicide. Suicide is not repairable, and you're stuck with it. And people will torture themselves for the rest of their lives. And in the email this that lady wrote to me, she's written, if if only I had known, if only if only I'd been there more, if only I had said something different. And that self-blame, it's my fault. But of course it wasn't her fault. But that's how suicide makes people feel. It destroys their lives. And that lady, the lady wrote to me and she told me she spoke to her son just 20 minutes before he took his life on the telephone. And she was kind of a bit preoccupied, a bit busy, not really focused on the call too much. And she said that she cannot forgive herself. She cannot forgive herself for not paying attention to that call. And that's a life sentence. To leave somebody in that position and to feel that way, it's a life sentence to someone, and nobody can bear that. It's too painful. So if you are prone to depression and those things are a serious issue for you, then I really, really want you to consider some things. That there are ways you can explore different options to get yourself back on your feet. There's all sorts of treatments for depression. It doesn't have to be like that. And you should seek those out. You should talk to people and do that while you can. And don't leave the people around you to suffer, because they will suffer for the rest of their lives. They'll never get over that. They may feel better for a period of time, or eventually there'll be some changes in their life, but they never really get over that. And then don't underestimate your value in the world. Don't underestimate that one day you can give kind words to somebody to make them feel better about their lives, or you can reach out to somebody to make them feel important, or you can do something to help other people that makes the world a better place. Because you have those values, you're able to do that, to contribute something valuable to make the world a better place. For sure you can do that. And probably more so from knowing how you can feel, to know that other people can feel that gives you a strength of empathy to be able to reach out to other people and to help them. So never underestimate your strength and your value. Most of all, just don't underestimate the fact that suicide is wrong. Taking your life is wrong. And the consequences to that are just not worth thinking about. So sorry if it's a bit doom and gloomy. It's touched me in a way today that I've not really felt good about myself. So I wanted to share some things in the hope that perhaps somebody will take this on board and think about their life and think about a future and create a future for themselves and make themselves valuable again. So if you've got any questions for me, or you think that there's anything that I've talked about that that's touched you, or you feel that you need some support, there's loads of helplines. There's loads of helplines. There's loads of resources. I'm always happy to speak to somebody to answer some questions. So give me some comments, drop me a line, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever suits you. But for God's sake, just talk to people. It doesn't have to be like that. And hopefully, you can turn your life around and make it a lot better than what it is. So I'm going to see you on the next Facebook Live. I'll see you tomorrow. And I don't know what we're talking about tomorrow yet. Just drop me some more questions and we'll have a look at that. And fingers crossed, we'll be chatting again tomorrow. So thanks for your time, and I'll speak to you soon.